The United States is going to war with China. At least that's now becoming a very clear possibility given what's been happening lately. Now, I want you guys to understand that this is going to impact each and every one of us if this goes through. And we've been hearing about it for months. The ties that the United States has with Taiwan, they run deep, especially when it comes to our economy and technology. However, China continues to send warning after warning to the Biden administration that they should not get involved with this, that this doesn't concern the United States at all. But guess what, guys? The Biden administration seems to be kicking things up a notch.
China's defense ministry has urged the Asia-Pacific region to be on high alert. This as the US has ramped up military deployment in the region and plans to revive a Pacific airfield that was used to launch atom bombs towards Japan. Beijing has responded by saying that its military is paying close attention to moves by the United States. The Chinese Defense Ministry spokesperson says it will firmly safeguard the country's maritime rights, security and sovereignty in the region. The official said that the US goal is for its own selfish gains and to maintain its hegemony. This as the US Pacific Air Force has confirmed it is rebuilding the airfield used to launch the nuclear attacks on Japan during World War II. The airfield is located in the island of Tinian. Tinian is part of the Northern Mariana Islands in the Western Pacific Ocean and is a U.S. territory. The U.S. has currently made significant progress to reclaim the airfield from the forest that has grown since its abandonment by U.S. units in 1946. The project to convert it into an extensive facility will receive tens of millions of dollars under the recently passed National Defense Authorization Act in the U.S. The U.S. Pacific Service's top official had earlier said that this step is taken to broaden its basing options in the event of any hostilities with China.
Right off the bat, folks, we can see that the United States is already laying the foundation for a possible conflict with China, even though talks, specifically military talks, have been resumed between both countries. Now, before we even get to any important updates with that, I want to ask you guys a simple question. Would you support the U.S. going into a war with China? And remember that, we're also supporting countries like the Ukraine and Israel in their wars. Comment 1 if you think that the United States is more than capable of handling all of these conflicts. But comment 2 if you think that we're now spread just a little bit too thin and you basically don't support us getting into another war. And while you guys are thinking about that, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss out on future updates and important information that you need to know about. Now, China is not very happy with the Biden administration, not in the slightest. You see, they had breakthrough talks recently with top military officials from both sides, resuming communications after more than a year. But just a week after that, China lashed out and said that the U.S. is stuck in a Cold War mindset. Now, the purpose of those talks was to avoid miscalculation, any sort of misunderstanding, one that we're probably already seeing right now. Because it only takes one wrong move to create a mixed bag of the problem. It takes one miscalculation or miscommunication to create a scenario where war is suddenly on the table. These tensions, though, have been boiling over for quite some time. It isn't something that just bloomed out of nowhere.
The US has announced a weapons aid package for Taiwan worth $518 million. It marks the first of a total $1.5 billion commitment by Congress to Taiwan.
The United States has announced a $345 million in aid package for Taiwan. It's the first major package from the Biden administration, drawing on stockpiles of its own weapons for Taiwan. The U.S. will send air defense systems, firearms, and missiles. The package also includes training for the Taiwanese military. Taipei says the U.S. aid will be an important step in its defenses against China. Beijing has criticized the deal. China sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, which is part of U.S. territory, of its territory, rather.
No joke. I kind of laughed pretty hard at that last line with Taiwan being part of our territory. But you see how the Biden administration has been ramping up sending these weapons to Taiwan, right? Now, here's why some analysts are predicting that 2024 may bring us to the brink of a war with China. There's another country that may pull us into a conflict, and no, it's not Taiwan. So look at this, guys. China's saying that they may be turning a blind eye to repeated provocations and harassment by the Philippines. This is, of course, in relation to the run-ins that both countries have had at sea. Manila says that the Chinese Coast Guards and maritime militia have repeatedly fired water cannons at their resupply boats, with them alleging that these caused serious engine damage to one of their boats while another was rammed intentionally. China says that it's all false hype, that we shouldn't believe the Philippines and that it was them that was actually intruding into the waters and actually rammed the Chinese Coast Guard vessel. A spokesperson for the Philippine military says that they're not trying to cause tension with China, even though China says that they're doing this on purpose because they have the backing of the United States. Now, we all know that just like Taiwan, President Joe Biden has committed that if an attack comes to the Philippines from China, that the United States will be there to protect them.
China says it will not turn a blind eye to repeated provocations and harassment by the Philippines amid heightened tensions over a spate of front-ends in the South China Sea. This after Manila earlier accused Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia of repeatedly firing water cannons at its resupply boats, causing serious engine damage to one and deliberately ramming another. At a news conference, Chinese Defense Ministry spokesperson Wu Qian called the accusations purely false hype.
有关言论纯属不实炒作，菲方不顾中方一再劝阻，执意派船闯入中国仁爱礁临近海域，还以挑衅性的方式冲撞中国海警船，并导致剐蹭。这种行径是非常危险的，也是极不专业的。中国海警依法采取必要措施予以规制，完全合理合法。中方始终致力于通过对话协商解决分歧，共同维护海上的稳定，但也不会对菲方一而再、再而三的挑衅滋事坐视不管。
Armed Forces of the Philippines spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar earlier said that the Philippines is not stirring up trouble in the West Philippine Sea.
Now, we're not really sure which side's telling the truth at this point, especially since they seem to be seeing things very differently. But we gotta ask, how does all of this relate to us? So here's the truth here, folks. The US and China actually rely a lot on each other, especially when it comes to different goods and supplies, okay? Now, what happened when Russia invaded Ukraine? The US placed multiple sanctions on Russia, right? To try and hit them where it hurts. What then will happen if China decides to take Taiwan and maybe even invade the Philippines? Now again, President Joe Biden gave his word that the US will be there to help, right? Should we just expect China to suddenly place sanctions on the US? Oh, you're going to defend Taiwan and the Philippines? We'll just go ahead and cut you off of the supplies that we provide you. This means that the US will have to find supplies of different goods from other countries now. Either that or we'll have to manufacture more stuff here at home. Stuff that can get expensive real quick. Of course, the US will also place sanctions on China, but those wouldn't matter as much because we're already going to be paying more for goods, even more than what we're doing right now. And with that being said, I gotta ask, do you think we can even afford that? And do you think that the Biden administration is aware that many Americans can't afford to shell out even more cash? What I do know is that I will follow these leads very closely and work hard to get you guys informed about it. Now, before I go, I just want to thank you guys so much for keeping me company. Thanks for subscribing to the channel, and I'm gonna see you on the next one.